Well, howdy there, folks. Name's Buck Jacuzzi, and today the tub is hotter than a jalapeno's armpit. 'Cause old Donald Trump just delivered a commencement speech at the University of Alabama that made the phrase "roll tide" feel more like roll eyes. I ain't saying the man hijacked the ceremony, but I've seen less self-promotion at a timeshare pitch. Strap in, partners. It's commencement season MAGA style. Now, before we dive too deep, let me take y'all on a little ride back through memory lane. This ain't Trump's first time spitting politics where politics don't belong. Remember that time he went to a Boy Scout jamboree and started talking about yachts, sex parties, and his electoral college victory?
Be prepared, the Boy Scouts motto. But despite their best efforts, nothing could have possibly prepared the Boy Scouts for what happened last night.
I saw him at a cocktail party, and it was very sad because the hottest people in New York were at this party.
That was the President of the United States reminiscing about his salad days in New York City, among other things, all in front of tens of thousands of children and teenagers in his address, and I use that word loosely, to the annual Boy Scout Jamboree.
I said, who the hell wants to speak about politics when I'm in front of the Boy Scouts, right?
Who the hell wants to speak about politics in front of the Boy Scouts? I think I know someone who does.
But do you remember that incredible night with the maps? And the Republicans are red, and the Democrats are blue, and that map was so red it was unbelievable, and they didn't know what to say.
That's right, breaking with precedent set by Franklin Roosevelt in 1935 and respected until last night, ignoring Scout regulations that, quote, the Boy Scouts of America must not involve scouting in political matters. President Trump ran right for partisan politics last night. He trashed Obamacare. He assailed the nation's capital.
We ought to change it from the word swamp to the word cesspool, or perhaps to the word sewer.
He attacked the free press.
Fake media, fake news.
He went after Hillary Clinton.
My opponent didn't work hard there because she was told
He also told the children this long story about a tycoon that included this curious section.
He went out and bought a big yacht, and he had a very interesting life. I won't go any more than that because you're Boy Scouts, so I'm not going to tell you what he did. Should I tell you? Should I tell you?
Yeah, he turned a scout camp into a therapy session with the emotional maturity of a possum on Red Bull. Or how about when he stood at the CIA memorial wall and rambled about crowd sizes like he was selling tickets to his own ego? And now, he's looking at a crowd of graduates who spent 4 years studying hard, and his takeaway is, let's talk about me. Also, Biden sucks.
You're the first graduating class of the golden age of America. We're in the golden age. You watch. This is the golden age. This is the golden age. We've done things that nobody thought possible. 100 days yesterday, 100 days, and we've done things that nobody thought even possible. Our country has always been defined by its ability to reform and reinvent itself, to meet the challenges of the next era. The last 4 years were not good for our country, but don't let that scare you. It was an aberration. We're run by people who truly, at that time, 4 years, we were run by people that didn't have a clue. But go out and fight. You're going to be very successful because now is the time to work harder than you have ever worked before. Find your limits and then smash through everything. Go and smash through.
Bless his heart. See, the man shows up in Tuscaloosa and declares it the golden age of America, which is real rich coming from the fella who thinks a trade deficit is some kind of personal insult. He's talking like the country just hit the lotto. Meanwhile, the economy's shrinking faster than Rudy Giuliani's legal defense fund. He tells these bright-eyed grads they're entering a time of unbelievable growth, which is technically true if you're talking about grocery bills and presidential delusions. And the best part, he says all this with the conviction of a drunk uncle explaining Bitcoin at Thanksgiving. They don't have a clue, he says, referring to anyone who ain't him, while demonstrating he don't know the difference between a trade deficit and a yard sale. Y'all ever buy more from your local diner than they buy from you? Congratulations, you've just committed an economic war crime in Trump's book. Now, let's talk about due process. Trump gets all riled up and asks how we can give due process to folks who enter the country illegally.
They have to let us do the job that the voters want us to do. Judges are interfering supposedly based on due process, but how can you give due process to people who came into our country illegally? They want to give them due process. I don't know.
But here's the thing. The Constitution ain't a Waffle House menu where you pick and choose who gets what. It says all persons, not only if you're wearing a red hat and no Kid Rock personally. The man's been president twice now, and he still treats the Fifth Amendment like it's a personal insult. That ain't leadership. That's just being loud and legally illiterate. And then there's the Whopper. Gas prices at $1.88.
But the price of food has gone down, and mortgage rates are down, and gasoline prices just hit $1.88 a gallon in 3 states. Can you believe it? It was at $3.50. It was at $4. We're drilling. Oh, we're drilling. You know, drill, baby, drill, right? We drill, baby, drill. We do that.
Partner, I ain't seen gas that cheap since Blockbuster was still open. Meanwhile, Biden's been drilling more than a Texas oil tycoon on espresso, and Trump's out here pretending he's the one tapping the reserves. I don't know what's more delusional, the price he quoted or the fact he thinks people believe him. But the pièce de resistance, Trump trying to sell himself as a self-made man. He tells these graduates that he took a gamble on a Manhattan hotel at 28, leaving out the small detail that Daddy Warbucks gave him $400 million and a last name with more real estate than a monopoly board. That ain't grit, that's inheritance with a bad attitude.
I was 28 when I took my first big gamble to develop a hotel in Midtown Manhattan, the Grand Hyatt, and it worked out incredibly well. But I was very young at the time. I was like a very young person in sort of an old person business.
If Trump had just dumped that cash into the S&P 500 and sat on his hands, he'd be richer and less of a national security risk. He says he started young in an old person's business. Hell, so did Walt Disney, Steve Jobs, and Thomas Jefferson. But they didn't do it with a cosign from Fred Trump and 6 bankruptcies in the rear view.
Steve Jobs was 21 when he founded Apple. Walt Disney was 21 when he founded Disney. James Madison, James Monroe, Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson. They were no older than 25 when they began the journeys that etched their names into the history books for all time.
Citing Steve Jobs while living off trust fund fumes is like saying you're an astronaut because you once rode Space Mountain. And as if that weren't enough, he sprinkles in some jabs at transgender athletes, judges, immigrants, and anyone else who doesn't clap loud enough. He even tossed in a bit about a developer with a trophy wife, 'cause nothing says inspirational graduation wisdom like bragging about somebody else's arm candy.
And a company, Gulf and Western, came along and they said, we're going to make you an offer to buy your company. And they offered him a lot of money, more money than he ever thought he could make. And he retired, lost his momentum. He retired and he led a beautiful life. He had a wife, I must tell you, it was his second wife. It was a trophy wife. What can I say? I don't like telling you everything, but we're all friends, right? Can we talk?
It's like if Dr. Seuss wrote a book called Oh, the Grievances You'll Yell. In the end, the man turned a commencement address into a campaign rally with extra bitterness on the side. And the wildest part? These grads, these bright, young, educated folks, they probably understood the Constitution, the economy, and international trade better than the man who showed up to lecture them on all three. So if you're wondering what happens when you let a former game show host with delusions of grandeur take the mic at your graduation, well, now you know. He came to honor the students and left with their spotlight in his back pocket, strutting off like he just invented ambition. But don't worry, old Buck's still here in the tub, bubbling and roasting so you don't have to. If y'all like this little hot soak of truth, go ahead and hit that subscribe button before Trump claims he invented water. Stay warm, stay woke, and stay soaked. I'll see y'all next time in the tub.